So no, if you want a romantic love story, I would definitely go soulmate. If you want a love story with God, I would go yin yang connection.
Close your mouth and put the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, just because that does create a circuit where we call it the microcosmic orbit circuit in Qigong.
It's lunacy. Lunacy is logic.
With Lilith and Dr. Charlier.
And welcome back, Cosmic Family, to another episode of Lunacy and
Logic!
Yeah, with your host, Dr. Charlier and
Lilith in the house!
So thank you. Welcome back, Lilith.
Dr. Charlier, shit is going down today. So, y'all don't know, Dr. Charlier and I filmed last week. And let's just say nothing resulted from that, as I got zero sound. And God had a talking to me about the contents of the podcast and required us to refilm. North Node is currently conjunct my sun, okay? Pluto is about to hit Venus, and Kundalini is going through the 6th and 7th chakra. So it's about to get real. The stuff that we're discussing today, it's destiny that it gets discussed at this exact time. It is being filtered to all the souls out there that need to hear it. So if you're watching this, stay tuned, because this message is meant for you, Freak Show.
Just for you, just for you. So let's get straight to the polls. So what we got here? We got
What is the pulse of the collective?
Yes. I sense there's some wiry pulse going on with the collective on top of maybe a continuing that slippery pulse that we have. But I feel like it's stirring up some internal wind and damp heat now, right?
For sure, Charlier, for sure. I mean, the slippery, I agree with you. You know, slippery pulse by default is not easy to get rid of. We've had slippery the last few weeks. I still feel like this is the dampness that is in our bodies. Especially with Jupiter in Cancer, you've got this emotional dampness. And with Uranus in Gemini, it's also triggering this internal wind, which is giving that overthinking, worrying, anxiety, all caused by this foggy and heaviness of the dampness.
Yeah, and it feels like just because this emotional buildup has been building up so much, and now we're experiencing extra side effects, right? And that's kind of why we're feeling now this internal wind building up from this long, what's it called? This long dampness and wiry pulse that we've had for the last couple of weeks.
Exactly, because the wiry there's a constrained chi there, almost like repressed truth or repressed emotion. There's some frustration causing that, and that's giving rise to this heat and this internal wind.
Yeah, so when we say is when there's a lot of stagnation, when we say stagnation, there's a lot of traffic, right? You imagine there's a lot of cars on the road and it's slowing down because there's so many cars on the road. So the same thing when we say there's a lot of chi stagnation, there's a lot of energy that is building up from within us, and that energy, just like in traffic, builds up as heat when it's not able to go anywhere. So just like in traffic, you're waiting to get through the road, you're getting very amped up, and this is where this heat is building up within us.
Well, yeah, and I feel like an imbalance between earth and fire here that's causing this, that's generating this wind.
Yeah, but also even in astrology, we're moving from a watery and earthy element to more of an air and fire element, right? Where we're getting this Aries energy with this Gemini and Aquarius energy happening, on top of a little of a Cancer energy with Jupiter hanging out over there in Cancer.
Yeah, and basically what's happening, and this is perfect actually for today, is there's this dysregulated yang. The yang is, you said previously the yang is excess, and I think then was the yang was excess, but now the yang feels more like dysregulated. due to that constrained chi that we spoke about with the wiry and the dampened earth, which is the slippery pulse.
Yeah, yeah. So this young buildup is also kind of having this heat, and that's also kind of matching up with the astrology, right? And that's what's really beautiful about kind of experiencing the astrology matching up with like a collective pulse that we're seeing with just the elements of fire, water, earth, and air.
Yeah, and the yin is like murky. It's overloaded and blocked with this unprocessed emotions as well.
Yes, yes. It does feel like, and also what's funny is because of these like four retrogrades are happening now with Neptune, Saturn, Mercury all kind of retrograding. It does feel like this young energy is stagnating even for us. And so our direction feels a little lost, as if there's just so much emotion that's kind of like causing us to feel a little confused about how we should move forward.
Well, exactly. And I think based on everything we can establish with that pulse and those symptoms, that the collective has got liver chi stagnation, generating internal wind with damp heat that is disturbing the shen, leading to an imbalance of yin yang. So we've got quite a diagnosis. There is lots happening in the collective, it seems. And it's, as I said, shit is going down.
Yes, yes. So we'll definitely kind of decode and demystify those codes for you all.
So are we going straight into the codes of destiny?
Yes. So now time for the codes of destiny. So what's going on in our destiny there, Lilith?
Well, in terms of what we've lived through since we last aired, I would say the biggest thing is definitely Mars conjunct the South Node.
Yes, definitely some karmic ties. Really about organizing, cleaning up. You know, I've been doing a lot of organizing in my house, reorganizing things that no longer serve me, just to kind of be a little bit more of a productive house, home for me to live in because my dad no longer lives there, and so I'm kind of changing things up to work it out for me. But that's still very karmic that my father passed, and now I'm kind of like taking all that information and now kind of reorganizing myself in this kind of Mars conjuncting the South Node in Virgo right now.
Yeah, because this is basically happening against your sun.
Yes, exactly.
But but if you want to know who had it the most rough with the Mars conjunct the South Node, it wasn't you or me, Jollier. It was that astronomer's CEO, Andy Byron. I already know his name because the poor mother chucker went completely viral. But so that incident actually at the Coldplay concert happened exactly when Mars was conjunct the South Node. So that is letting go of a lot of stuff, is what we can say. He's doing a lot of releasing. No rewards for Andy.
Yes. And because it is happening in Virgo, it is actually, I feel like, a very good time for anyone to actually pay attention to detoxing methods, to purification methods, where, you know, Virgo is all about the innocence, purification, preparing really that self mastery to kind of give ourselves to the greater spirit, right? To spirit, to God. And so what's really interesting is like in this process, it's kind of like cleansing the things that are not pure, right? And so I feel like being caught on the Coldplay concert is kind of saying, "Hey, are you being pure with your thoughts? Because if not, here's your karmic, what's it called? Your karmic balance coming back at you."
Speaking of karmic balance, after Mars just conjuncted the South Node, we've got good news of what's to come, and that is on the 13th of August. Yo, bro. Venus is going to conjunct Jupiter, but not just anywhere. 14 degrees Cancer, my friends, conjunct the star of Sirius.
Oh.
Because that conjunction is going to happen somewhere in our chart for every single one of us. And Jupiter plus Venus plus Sirius, this is like benevolent on benevolent on benevolent energy. Um, I would say watch what happens in your life anytime between, let's broad it out. The exact conjunction of Venus and Jupiter at 14 degrees happens on the 13th of August, around there. I mean, I'm always looking in my time zone. But I would say anywhere from the 12th of August as far as the 19th of August. Watch what happens in your life there. I suspect we can have some relief and have some good events take place. So, no prophet of doom this week. I've got good news, and that is actually the best news we could have received as far as planetary alignments go.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of y'all have been kind of going through the ringer, and so it'll be nice to kind of get a reprise where Venus and Jupiter are conjuncting. And they're both considered what we call considered benefic. So they amplify kind of the good things. And so for them to come together in Cancer, which is Venus exalted in Cancer?
No, Venus is exalted in Pisces.
Pisces. Okay, okay. So yeah, so the Venus conjunct Jupiter in Cancer will be really interesting to kind of experience. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of healing during that time too.
Well, I had good news and bad news. There's always yin and yang in everything. You know how it works. And I gave the good news first. There is a little bit of bad news, but the good news of the bad news is that it happens before the good news. So the good news should surely fix the bad news in chronological order. But 9th of August, so a few days before this great good news happens, Mars does oppose Saturn. So this for me is also like some kind of acceleration of problems, or
So confrontation, big confrontation. Yeah.
like however you want to do it, increasing your responsibility around something. So it's got that kind of energy around it, but I don't know. I'm feeling hopeful because of this triple conjunction on the 13th of August.
Ooh. Okay, so it's kind of like a few days before this conjunction, we're kind of getting a cleanup or some kind of energy
Yeah.
for like um maybe possibly no, I don't say like a sacrifice, but I feel like it's kind of like a like letting go before we're getting that big abundance conjunction coming on with Venus and Jupiter on the 13th.
Well, for sure, but that would have already started now with the Mars conjunct South Node, the letting go.
Okay, okay, good, good, good. So do we want to move past the codes of destiny and move into real talk?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to suggest. Let's move
Cool,
on
cool.
into keeping it real.
Yes, let's go into keeping it real, y'all. So how have you been keeping it real, Lilith?
How have I been keeping it real? Well, as we said at the start of the episode, I lost my sound, all of my sound from last week's episode, because as it happens, God called me out and said I have not been truthful enough in the content, and this content requires extreme authentic expression. It needs truth, it needs the full truth, not the half truth, and full authentic expression. And I basically realized that I had been discussing only what felt safe and comfortable for me, and not what would serve the collective. And so here I am, and we're going to discuss the full truth today. And what God wanted me to go into was, I've brought up before that my entire Kundalini journey, and in actual fact, it was even before the Kundalini, funny enough, my entire journey has been about yin yang energies from the start. So this goes back even, to my brother's death. Right after his death, I was in a place where I was asking God, like, why are you doing this to me? Why do I have to go through this? And that was the first time he had ever explained to me the concept of yin yang energies. And he explained it to me at the time, like I had never even heard of yin yang at the time. And he had explained it to me like, I have to take you into the equal and opposite, in other words, into the depths of darkness, you can say, in order for you to appreciate the equal and opposite one day, the light. And what I've also understood that he means by appreciate the light eventually, or ultimately, is if you haven't gone into the darkness, he can give you the light. He can give you the light without the darkness. But the problem with that, and we'll discuss it today as we go deeper into these yin-yang energies, the problem with that is you won't even recognize the light, let alone appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? So in order to even recognize his gift of this yang energy in your life, he had to take me, but many of us, that's how it works, into the yin energies first. So I know we had discussed before that suffering and all of that wasn't a prerequisite for a spiritual journey, it was a catalyst. But I guess it depends on your journey. In my journey, he needed me to identify the yang energies one day. And the only way you do that is to go into the yin. This is what we're now going to discuss, basically the core principle of why God even invented yin and yang energies, is that equal and opposite so that you can see.
The duality and polarity of the Hermetic principles, as we talk about in the Hermetic principles, 7 Hermetic principles.
Exactly. So the point is, my Kundalini didn't awaken in isolation. You know, I haven't really spoken about what triggered my Kundalini exactly. I've just been saying I've had a Kundalini awakening. I've been in complete denial as to the actual trigger. And the reason for that is because there was another soul involved. Another soul triggered my Kundalini awakening. And in order for you to understand what the soul is to me and how it fits into the equation, we actually have to go back to the source of all creation. Basically, my Kundalini awakened through like a mirror soul, what you would call the yang half of the yin yang whole of like a higher version of me. Okay. And so we can discuss what that is exactly now. I mean, a lot of times you hear them talking about maybe a soul like that as a twin flame. But the point is, we're not going to use that label today because the concept of twin flame has got a lot of connotations and a lot of untruths associated with it, and I don't want a label to tell my story. So we're going to leave that label for today and disregard it. But this is in essence what, if there is such a thing as a twin flame, what it would be. It would be the yin and yang. And in order to understand that yin and yang, we have to go back to the source of all creation. So let's go back to the source of all creation. So, Charlie, have I ever told you about the fact that I remember God's first moment of consciousness?
Yes, you did. You did bring it up once, yes.
So we have to go back to that. So God, I actually remember the first moment of consciousness of God in the 12th dimension. And if I can explain it, it's like, you first of all, you have to understand all energy is intelligent. If you're not going to understand that all energy is intelligent, then click over to the next YouTube channel because you're not going to understand any of what I'm going to say. You need to understand that energy by nature is intelligent. And
Yes,
so this
and
energy...
real quick, a study has shown that energy does have consciousness. This is kind of what we talk about, the quantum mechanic effect, where your observation of an experiment changes the outcome of the experiment. That means that consciousness has to be involved when there's energy to be observed.
Exactly. Exactly. So if I can describe the feeling, there's like a suction of energy. So energy is like deciding to come together, and there's like a pool of the energy together until there is enough concentration for a consciousness that can house self-awareness. And that moment is like a waking up in the morning. It was very peaceful. It's actually not at least, I don't know, in 3D, with the planets exploding and the Big Bang, if it was a violent event, but certainly from God's perspective, it was a very peaceful, like waking up on a Sunday morning type vibe. And, when you wake up, you don't just jump into the day. Most people don't, certainly not a Pisces, which, let's face facts, if God was a zodiac sign, it would be a Pisces. And it's only an Aries rising that would claim God is their sun sign. So So waking up, so you don't just go into the day like, full blown. You kind of gather your thoughts. You come to, you can say, and be like, okay, I'm in another day. So God is coming to, and he's like, okay, I am all that I am. I am what I am. But how can I experience what I am? And so he thinks about it and he comes up with this plan that the only way he can experience what he is to experience what he is not in this particular scenario. Okay, and that's because God, if you think about it, if love is all there is and happiness is all there is, let's use something more easier to understand. If cold is all there is and there is no hot, how will you know it's cold? Cold is all there is, so you've got no frame of reference, you've got no alternative experience, so it's really just a concept. It is what it is. It is, and so this is it. If love is all there is, which God in the 12th dimension is, there was no ways to truly experience this love because there was nothing else. And so, you get this separation from 12th dimension into the 11th dimension, where you can say God splits into two, which is yin and yang energies in the 11th dimension. So in the 12th dimension, he's still one. He's the alpha and the omega, the all and the all that is not, the one conscious universal mind. Then in the 11th dimension, he splits into yin and yang. And from that 11th dimension, everything below that contains both yin and yang. I mean, we've just said there's a split in the 11th dimension. So you already know by default, even the 12th dimension contains both yin and yang. Okay? And so this you can say in that 11th dimension, that yin yang energy, you could equate it to God and the devil. You can equate it to day and night, good and evil, whatever you want to equate it to. The point is, at that point in time, once you've left the 12th dimension, you've separated the 12th dimension, you've already got what we've spoken about before as the wound of separation. By default of leaving the 12th dimension, you've got the wound of separation. Now, my belief is that the further you go from the 12th dimension, the deeper that wound is, the more fundamental it is, and the more pain it causes, right? So we are all the way in the third dimension, and so this is very far from the 12th dimension. So our experience here of yin energy is a lot of heartbreak, pain, suffering, because we are the furthest from the 12th dimension. So it's the energy that is most what God is not, if you know what I'm saying. It's the yin energy, if you equate God to being the yang energy. So God kicks out souls all the time, right? So he kicks out souls because now he's decided he needs to create what he is not. But it's one thing creating. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, you mean kick souls out as in birth them?
Yes. Yeah, I call it kicking. I call it kicking out. Let me tell you, I did not leave the 12th dimension voluntarily. Okay.
You're like, get out over there. I can see you God kicking you nasty. He goes, how'd you get down here? I got the marker from God.
When you get kicked out of the 12th dimension, is basically the soul being born, because before that you're part of God, right? And so, even the Bible says we are all made in the image of God. So when you get kicked out of the 12th dimension into 3D, then you also get kicked out in yin yang form. Just like when God left and went into the 11th dimension, he went straight into yin yang form. So same thing. When the soul gets born here, well, gets born in total, but so I'm actually more talking about the soul journey now than birth here for now. The soul birth, it splits into two, yin and yang. And so when you split into this yin yang, so there's two souls that have essentially, you can say, come from one soul that made up one soul in the 12th dimension, kicks out two souls now all of a sudden, yin yang souls.
So in a lot of spiritual circles, a lot of people talk about this idea of the monad, or how like fingers, right? So the soul shows up as the fingertip, but the monad is the hand. So right, each fingers can find a place to incarnate in time, but the oversoul monad, usually what we call the oversoul, that's kind of has the conscious intelligence, right, is able to kind of feed into multiple timelines. But what you're talking about in this idea of a twin flame concept, where the oversoul splits into two, even from a yin and yang standpoint of view. So that's a very particular split, is in splitting in two rather than splitting in three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine. I mean, source itself can split themselves into how many fragments they choose to experience life. But what you're saying specifically in your oversoul, you guys split into, and now you're experiencing this very strong yin yang differences, polarities in people.
Exactly. We're not going to go now. I mean, I hear what you're saying about all the other different souls. Yes, on different planes of existence and different dimensions, you've got different number of souls involved in the monoid and the oversoul, which all exist in different dimensions. So I'm now just talking, forget about the monoid of the oversoul. I'm trying to just make it simplified and say when the soul is born. I don't care what level the soul is at. When the soul leaves the 12th dimension, it is separated from God and it becomes yin and yang. And so the journey of the soul is, in essence, to go from the point where it was kicked out to, which is essentially, you can say, the furthest point from the 12th dimension. It has to journey all the way back to the 12th dimension. And these souls that are born together, almost like twins at the same time, yin and yang, their journey is together all the way back to God. Now, when I say together, I don't mean together in a physical life. I mean, I'm talking from the soul perspective only. And so you can imagine when that kind of journey happens, there is a lot of karma that can get ranked up between these two souls. And especially because they're yin and yang. So the one actually represents the shadow side of the other one. So this is what I'm saying. If you are in a relationship that is working out well and you're not extremely advanced souls, I can bet my life on the fact that it's not a twin flame connection, because you are not advanced enough to have worked through that shadow work. You need to be a really, really old soul to have even done that. And so, and let me tell you, if you're still in 3D, then by default in 3D, you're not that advanced as a soul. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, right now on the planet, we've got a lot of advanced souls, but I'm talking about the general progression of a soul. If they're only in 3D, they're not that advanced. Do you know what I'm saying? They haven't progressed that much.
Yeah, and that means seeing and living from the 3D perspective rather than when we say fourth dimension, fifth dimensional perspective.
And so, the thing is that each of these yin yang souls, even though they together make up a whole, each of them have yin yang in themselves and are whole within themselves. So, when I say my whole journey has been about yin yang, it's really about this journey, and this kind of, when this kind of connection is triggered within you and triggered this path, it's really a connection of finding wholeness within yourself, giving both the masculine and feminine energies within you a voice, acknowledging both, embracing and loving both, and going towards God without the need for this other energy. This is the key. It's a fractal. So if we're each made in the image of God, so we are whole within ourselves, and really this journey of yin yang souls is really tricky, because it's not a journey of romantic fulfillment. It is a journey of discovering wholeness within yourself and fully merging with God, essentially. I mean, the separation of yin and yang energies, you could say, you could explain it in different ways. So it can be yin energies, the physical body. Yang would be your higher self or God descending into the physical body. And so one cannot actually exist without the other. Actually, Charlie, let's let's go through the four characteristics of yin yang energies before I carry on with this conversation. Let's quickly share with Oaks the four characteristics of the yin yang energies, which is the fundamental principles of yin yang energy in Chinese medicine. Yin yang energy forms the basis of all of Chinese medicine. And so these four fundamental qualities of yin yang energy, I think, is pretty critical to understand in order for us to go forward and to understand the story more. So, do you want to go with the first one, Charlier?
So I think yin yang is polar opposite. One is the opposite of the other.
So they're opposites in nature, but here's where I can say, if I can say how it differs from the law of polarity, is they're opposite in nature, but they're actually complementary forces. So even though they're posing, and this is what I mean by the shadow side of you, the mirror side, it's difficult to say because it's difficult for us to even comprehend something that's opposite, that's complementary. Maybe I guess like, positive and negative charge of a battery that instead of repelling, they attract. Maybe you can think about it like that. But they're complementary and they go together. Like night and day and
Yes.
chi and blood.
Well, people don't know what chi and blood is, but yes. Night and day.
Then the next is they are interdependent.
So they need each other. So you cannot have one without the other.
Exactly. And one gives rise to the meaning for the other. And I mean, this is what we were talking about. If there's only cold and there's no hot, then what is cold? It is the presence of hot that gives the cold the meaning of cold.
Right.
Yeah. And third, the
Third,
principle of mutual consumption.
mutual. Yeah. So if you basically like, we're talking about heat. When you're outside and it's really hot, you raise the yang, then you actually consume sweat, which comes out of our body to cool us off, right? So in that heat, you're raising their heat. You're also going to consume fluid to keep you from getting too hot. So that's how you consume both yang energy, heat, and yin energy, sweat.
Yeah, they're in a constant state of dynamic balance, both consuming and nourishing each other constantly.
Exactly.
So excess of one will consume and deplete the other.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So you
Yeah.
so you wouldn't want excess or depletion of the other, because if you've got excess, it depletes the other one because it consumes and it overpowers. But if it's and the opposite, if it's depleted and it's weak, then the other one, it gives that one room to overpower. So there's your imbalance. That's how you can see the
Yeah.
imbalance. And
So,
then
so that just shows also too, like too much indulgence, right, causes an excess in that indulgence, or too much lack of creates the imbalance of too much lack causing an imbalance of too much of something else, right? And going back to like understanding that you can't have cold without hot, and so too much cold, right, consumes heat, or too much heat consumes cold.
exactly. And then the next one is they're intertransformational.
Yeah, they turn into each other.
So this is like where day becomes night and night becomes day.
Exactly. Yeah, so the daytime transform into the night, and the nighttime transform into the day.
Night is also rest that transforms into day, which is activity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So even when we're saying like the daytime, but then as soon as we get into full daytime, then you get the essence of yin, the opposite, the nighttime, starting to be born within the daytime. And that's what's really beautiful about yin yang, is that within the yin there's also the seed of the yang, and within the yang there's the seed of the yin. And that's how they're able to transform into each other, because the seed of one is inside of the other.
Exactly. Exactly. So now that we know a little bit more about yin and yang energy, so, you know, as part of this journey, I just want to quickly, before we carry on and discuss heavy yin and yang energy, I just wanted to tell a little story as well. When my Kundalini energy passed the throat chakra, I actually got visited by yin yang energies beings, yin yang energy being the pure yin yang energy beings from the ninth dimension. Some people call these beings Hari and Hara. Some people can call them Shakti and Shiva, which is the energies inside the body, but these are from the ninth dimension. Some people call them Vishnu and Shiva. Now, what I don't understand is I just explained to you God split into two dimensions in the 11th dimension. But these beings came from the ninth dimension. So I'm not going to go into that link today, but let's just say that the ninth dimensional yin yang energy beings are beings linked directly to me, whereas the yin yang energy in the 11th dimension, all the souls come from. You see what I'm saying? There's a group of souls, or only the group of souls linked to me come from the ninth dimension. So you can say we each have our own ninth dimensional yin yang energy that came to visit me. You see what I'm saying? So it wasn't the 11th dimensional yin yang energies. But I just wanted to say that because that was actually a big part of my journey. And I don't want to go into too much of the actual dream and all of that. But they were together in the dream, not one being. They were two separate beings together in the dream. And they came to me almost like on my journey to say thank you, because it seemed like I was the root cause of the thing that made their union possible to begin with. So it's like being this bridge to union, which is so interesting when you know the Kundalini journey is the merging of those energies. When the yin energy that wakes up in the base of the spine travels up and meets the yang energy at the top of the crown, this is the merging of those energies, or like they say, unity consciousness. So it was just such a magical dream. And of course, I had Neptune in Pisces in the 12th house with my sun sign being Pisces. So this dream was real, y'all. But let's get back to so this soul, what it really did, this other soul that triggered my Kundalini awakening, what it really did is it triggered my Kundalini in me, and that in essence is a journey that initiates a very intimate journey with God Himself. So what I want to say is, if all the people out there that are talking about so-called twin flames, I would say that yin yang is the definition of a twin flame. So if that is the case, if your journey hasn't directly led you to do deep shadow work, to become whole within yourself and lead you to a very intimate relationship with God, then either that's not your twin flame, or it's just not a priority in this life. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You cannot be with that yang energy. The irony is you're not able to, your souls are not able to be together, that create that yin yang energy in a stable, sustainable state, unless, because of the very nature of the souls, unless you've done that deep shadow work. And let me tell you, this journey is really, for me, more about a love affair with God, actually. If you are not having a love affair with God, then I'm saying you're not on this journey. You're not dealing with yin yang energies. Do you know what I'm saying? It's literally, it's a path to unity consciousness, and it's God merging with the physical body. So what He's really doing is, it's a place where, look, they say God is in all of us. Yes, God is in all of us, but that Kundalini energy is fast asleep. He's fast asleep. I'm just going to tell you right now. He's fast asleep. So what happens when the Kundalini energy wakes up and it goes up there? It's like God waking up all over again. And ultimately, when He gets to unity consciousness, what is happening is, ideally, it is God consciously experiencing Himself through you, knowing that He's experiencing Himself through you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's a conscious knowing. And this is where the magic of these yin yang connections lie. When you get to the point where you don't need the other connection anymore, first of all, because this is where you have to be. There's no other ways. I'm sorry to tell you. There's no other ways. Trust me, I've tried to find the other ways. It's not going to happen. The energies just don't allow it. If you can get to the point where you don't need that other energy and you are completely focused on your love affair with God, then you're in a very good place, I would say. Then you're headed in the right direction. At least if you're dealing with one of these types of connections, because that's what this is. It's got, romantic fulfillment may or may not happen. This is each journey by themselves. I can't sit here and predict for you it's going to happen or it's not going to happen. But the point is, what I can guarantee is that it's not going to happen as long as you need it to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You have to get past needing it. You have to be whole within yourself. It's I've been to God in the 12th dimension. It's just Him. It's just me. It's just me and Him. It's just you and Him. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody else. So let me tell you, when you're dealing with these energies, the last thing God is going to let you do is worship and put all your happiness and your whole life's purpose on another human being. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? That is the quickest way you can go take yourself straight into your own hell, because your soul is going to be most unhappy in that scenario. But anyway, that's what I wanted to point out, is these energies is really, it's a journey with you and God, and you and God merging, and that whole process and that whole awakening and that whole remembering. And that's what it's about. It's not the romantic fulfillment, if it happens, is a sideline. It's not even one of the main stories. You know what I'm saying? There's a few main stories. The romantic fulfillment of those kind of connections is not even one of them. It's a byproduct, maybe.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because you're just sharing this kind of brings a lot of light to a lot of people who have conversation around twin flames, where a lot of people will use twin flames that kind of like this conversation about this deep romantic relationship, where a lot of people kind of have this conversation about this idea of twin flame when people are waking up into their spiritual journey. And this is kind of where people, for the first time, suddenly after their spiritual awakening, suddenly they're feeling deeply into everything, into themselves, into their spiritual journey and the karmic journey. And so what happens is suddenly they find someone that they connect with on what they believe is such a deep level that they feel like, God, this person could be a twin flame because I've never felt like this for somebody else, because suddenly I am so sensitive to spirituality that this can only mean that this person is the one for me because I've never felt like this before. And this is kind of the typical feeling that a lot of people have when they're having this spiritual awakening, because really the entire experience of spiritual awakening is like being, I feel like on like spiritual drugs, right? I feel like what happens when you have this awakening, your body turns on because you're not feeling things that you've never experienced. When your pineal gland, your third eye comes on, you're now starting to get psychic insight that you've never had before. And then even just your touch, like usually you get like a physical reboot because there could be some physical detoxing that happens, and so the senses and the touching of another soul feels so potent, right? And so what happens when both of you guys are now kind of really turned on and activated? It's more than just a physical attraction. There is more of an emotional, physical, and spiritual attraction, and that spiritual attraction could be karmic. And this is kind of where I find a lot of people who say, "Oh my God, I thought that person that I met at this festival or at this party while I was on plant medicine and I was, high, was like my twin flame." And that's kind of again, what happens to a lot of people is they think that this deep relationship with another being is like a twin flame, could potentially be actually a soulmate that you've had before, that understands you very deeply, but maybe this lifetime you're not here to have a romantic relationship, because sometimes having a romantic relationship puts you in a different frame of mind that you're not able to experience each other with that yin yang energy, because you could have a platonic relationship with a male female figure that kind of matches the same vibration as you. And so a lot of times those could be like two business partners can choose to actually be this twin flame energy, but because of that, they chose in this lifetime to take more of a non-romantic relationship, but maybe one of triggering each other. Maybe that person triggers you, you know, of things that like, I never thought I could see that kind of thing in a man, and so I hate that, or I hate that women are like that. But this person always triggers me, and suddenly you realize that that trigger is not about you not liking women or men in this particular way, but actually you finding that you hate yourself or are very upset about yourself because that person triggered something in you. And I think that's why we don't really talk about relationship being a place for potential triggering. I think sometimes we think the triggering effect is a bad one. You're like, oh, you trigger me to get upset at something. How about triggering something where you're triggering hope in somebody? Wow, you're like, you triggered me to have more hope for myself, for my dream. And sometimes we get kind of attracted to this energy of like, this person gave me hope and triggered me. And so maybe we think that's a romantic trigger, right? And this is what's happening now with the spiritual awakening. It's just kind of like how um you know, in high school you meet a lot of people that you grew up with, and so eventually you guys don't have the same thing, but suddenly you go to college in another city, in another country, and suddenly you're like, wow, everybody's so beautiful and so different. That's because you've never been around those kinds of energy, so it feels very new to you. And so it's very easy to go, wow, I've never thought I could fall in love with somebody so much, because suddenly you're in college together and you guys are following the same career. And so that creates more attraction for somebody. So again, this is just very important, because what Lilith is really talking about is there's a lot of misunderstanding of what these twin flame triggering could be. And so a lot of people tend to kind of, I find in the spiritual community, people will latch on to people who they think are spiritual and they think are their twin flame, but really what they're doing is they're very narcissistic. And so then you suddenly get caught in a narcissistic relationship, thinking that you're in a spiritual relationship because maybe you guys have spiritual term in common. He talks about his chakras, right? But like, you guys are both talking about chakras, thinking, oh, this person gets it. But no, he's just gaslighting you with his chakras. He's like, hey, baby, like, I cannot be around you. You like turn on my chakras in the wrong way, and suddenly you're like, oh my god, like I cannot be around this guy because I like turned on these chakras the wrong way. And suddenly you're like, what? Like, he's just using chakras in a different way, so like it tricks you into thinking that there's an attraction there. But you know, they're just using those spiritual terms to kind of like make you feel like you're in a false sense of comfort with that person.
No, but you know, Charlie, I mean, the point is, I don't understand these people that are saying they want these, I'm going to rather say yin yang connections. They want these yin yang connections. I don't think they're saying they want something without even fully understanding what it is they want. For me, the soulmate relationship that you described is a really, really beautiful, in terms of your experience in 3D and experiencing a blissful, blissful love where nothing can go wrong. That is a soulmate relationship for sure. It is not, I repeat, it is not a yin yang connection. A yin yang connection will, number one, show you your biggest fears. It is your shadow side. It is going to take you into hell and then back again. And if you are not conscious of God by your side, I don't even know if you'll make it through that, is the point. Do you know what I'm saying? You could end up like dead or in a madhouse. Who knows? But the point is, it's not a connection that you don't want that connection any more than what you want a Kundalini awakening before you're ready. Because it basically strips your whole life bare. And if you don't know yourself, This is why it's so important to know yourself. If you don't know yourself, like God, when He knew, oh, I'm creating this that is not me so that I can see me. If you don't know yourself, you're going to think that's you. And you are going to be in physical and mental and emotional hell. This is the yin yang connection. It is not something pleasant, it is something that you experience the supernatural. That's the nice part, I would say, about the yin yang connection. You definitely have supernatural experiences. If you're not having supernatural experiences, it's definitely not a yin yang connection. By default, of the nature of it, it is supernatural experiences accompanied. But most importantly, it's the supernatural experiences, but it's that road straight through hell, because it is the deepest, darkest shadow work that you've ever experienced. And when the Kundalini is going through the 6th and 7th chakra, you've done most of that clearing. So you're literally scraping out the most hidden and most shameful fears in the darkest corners of your chakras. This is what this connection does. It tears you open and bares your guts to the world in the most unflattering way. so, so no, if you want a romantic love story, I would definitely go soulmate. If you want a love story with God, I would go yin yang connection. And
Yeah, yeah.
that, my friends, is how the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful that you see that, just because, again, it goes back to how you were saying that some of us kind of have chosen to go from like the higher dimensions down into the low vibrations to forget our connection to source, to God, and then kind of make our way back up. Same thing too is some souls choose to start from nothing, from the beginning, and try to rise up back into the heavens, into God, source itself too. And so there's different kind of levels of that. And so really, to have that yin yang relationship with another person, it is kind of like saying, hey, I want to find that complementary energy that helps me tap into my highest divinity, so that as you guys are triggering each other into your own kind of polarity, you guys are pushing yourselves higher up to reconnect to the source. And I think as we are reconnecting to the source, there isn't another person. There's only us becoming the one infinite creator once we go up the dimensions. And so when you're really looking for another person, you're not looking for a yin yang relationship. You're looking for a soulmate partner who's going to play, hang out, and do stuff with you. But when you're asking for a yin yang partner, you're like saying, hey, what's the part of me that is divine, so that I can kind of like drop the things that are more 3D or more ego based. And that's not a very easy thing, because everyone talks about how facing your ego and having an ego death is like breaking your identity in half and then coming out of that. And every time you break your identity and create a new identity from that, eventually you're going to have to break that identity again. So these yin yang relationship forces the breaking of this kind of physical ego as we get closer and closer, higher up to our divine spark in the higher dimensions. And so that's why, like, I've heard many dimensions that, like, as you get up to the higher dimension, probably like the ninth dimension we talk about, even the 11th dimension, there are souls who like gather up and become group souls. That's why you don't have like a lot of one-on-one relationship anymore in that level. You're having like group orgies sounds funny, but you're kind of having these group relationship. And so you can see that like this yin yang twin flame energy tends to be more of a spiritual trigger catalyst rather than a romantic partner you want to enjoy 3D life with.
Nailed it!
And when we talk about 3D life, it is about like hanging out and binging with Netflix, right? If you want to do binge and watch Netflix, you may not be able to pull that off with a twin flame yin yang pair, because a yin yang pair is gonna do what you like is what they're gonna not like, and vice versa, because you guys are like this complementary polar opposite. So you guys are learning from each other what the other likes and doesn't like, and you're kind of like accepting it rather than not accepting it. Because as we go up closer to the 12th dimension, everything exists, right? And so that's yin yang um, in the same expression. It's not easy for, like, even for us, right? It's very difficult for us to express either masculine and feminine at the same time. We tend to pick one or the other. So as we go up to the higher dimension, we actually all look like hermaphrodites, right? Or not even hermaphrodite, but there's what is it when we become almost the same, both masculine and feminine at the same time, right? The energy where both energy are all in the same body, right? And that's kind of where we're moving into as we go up to the higher dimensions. So thank you for sharing this deeper kind of, conversations of yin yang relationship, Lilith. It's very deep and very kind of like sensitive to talk about.
It is. It's not easy for me to talk about. God worked on me for quite a few years before I would mention that to the public. I mean, Charlie, are you one of the only people that even know about that story? There's not a lot of people that know that side of my story. Anyway, we can go straight into sacred medicine and deal with any imbalances between yin and yang.
I mean, the points that you were bringing up, I'm trying to think. I guess a lot of the points that you brought that we were talking about is a lot of clear heat points that are really good for this time as to kind of, because right now we're talking about liver chi stagnation from wiry pulse. So we're talking about also slippery because of a lot of emotional buildup. And so this is kind of like a really important point that we talk about in a lot. Is on our shoestring point, we talk a lot about yin spring points. Yin spring points are really good for the excess heat. So we're kind of seeing an excess heat with this damp heat because we're getting this. Actually, no, we have slightly rapid. So there's a little bit of deficiency heat happening here. So yin spring point are good for both deficiency and excess heat. So we can kind of use a liver 2 point to help with some of that liver stagnation building up into this damp heat.
So I think the liver 2 is particularly for those that, because this level of heat that we diagnose today, I don't think shows such irritability. I think the liver 2 can be used by those people that are showing a little bit more than slight heat signs. So yours is a little bit more rising. Maybe you've got more irritability, red eyes,
Red complexion, red face,
inflammation, rage.
inflammation.
So if you've got more of those, I would say liver 2 will be great, because yes, I think some people will have those for sure.
Yeah, plus right now with being outside, if you go outside, because of the sun, you're definitely picking up a lot of extra heat in general. And then we talk about heart seven. Heart seven is a really good one for the cardiovascular section. Sometimes some of this heat will be very difficult for you to fall asleep. We say that when the body is above warm and it's starting to get a little hot, then the Shen, the spirit itself, isn't is having a hard time going into the body to fall asleep. So then it kind of rises, the Shen rises, the spirit rises above the body and is not able to kind of go and feel comfortable inside the body and go to sleep. So that's where we get some insomnia. So heart seven right here at the wrist point here, and you'll kind of feel this little tendons here. This is where heart seven is. So you can kind of like massage this point here if you're kind of feeling it, moving your wrist as you're holding that point. So heart seven is a really good one to kind of help with the heat and that kind of like anxiety that's kind of rising up.
Well, and so therefore kidney 1 as well, right? Because it can root and stabilize the soul, especially during the ascension process. I think kidney 1 is a good one.
Yeah, definitely kidney one, y'all. And then if you guys also do some ionic detox bath or foot bath, those are really good to kind of help release any of the excess energy, like the slippery, wiry, and rapid pulse. Your feet is naturally able to kind of release excess energy to the ground, to the water. And that's kind of where there's osmosis happening in the foot of your pad, right? At the bottom of your feet excess energy is always kind of being released either in the ground or in the water.
Yeah, and another good exercise would be to do alternating nostrils breathing for 3 minutes a day. So alternating nostrils, it helps balance the right and left side of your body and the right and left channels of your body, so that enables chi to flow more harmoniously. It also helps cool. It's a cooling breath, so it gently cools, we've got slight heat for those that are not doing liver 2. It returns chi to the center. So this is also a more stabilizing effect. But a pro tip for the pros out there: if you can put your tongue on the tip of your mouth while you're doing the breathing exercises, what you're in essence doing is you're connecting the du, which is the yang channel, and the ren, which is the yin channel of the body. So you're actually connecting them and helping the chi flow more harmoniously. So that breath would be very, very nice for imbalance of yin and yang. Although,
Yeah, yeah, and the imbalances of yin yang, actually, it is good to actually close your mouth and put the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, just because that does create a circuit where we call it the microcosmic orbit circuit in Qigong. And so what happens, it creates a circuit from the yang channel from the spine into the ren channel here, what we call the conception. So the qi goes downward and then comes back up from the back of the head. So it creates this circuit. And when you do create the circuit, it is kind of like having this yin yang turn to each other and then transform to each other and then come back out. So this essence of yin yang working together is actually working in the body when you are kind of basically closing your mouth, meditating, and allowing the chi to flow from the back of your body into the front of the body and vice versa. It will create this beautiful orbit. And like in electromagnetic fields, when you create a circuit of electricity, what happens is you'll get a magnetic field that is more resonant. And that's what we call the auric field. The aura, people take pictures of your chakras using this lens that sees kind of like the magnetic field that's coming out of your body and with different colors. That's what we talk about when we talk about the chi, the energy around the field. So that's very important to kind of get the yin yang imbalance when we're doing that, putting the tip of the tongue on the roof.
and speaking of changing form, I think one of the key sacred medicines for this time is to not stop praying. With this Uranus in Gemini energy, Jupiter in Cancer, our nervous system is still, jumpy, you could say, and it's not helped by the liver chi stagnation. So praying is actually really, really helpful. Try it. If you don't believe me, try it. I guess if you're watching this, you probably do believe me, because I don't think those who don't are watching. But the point is, um, pray constantly. You can change the form of your prayer. You can go from, meditation to thanking God to screaming at Him to swearing at Him to doing whatever you want to do, whatever you have to do, but don't stop talking to Him. Do you know what I'm saying? Really, this time where we're trying to get to know ourselves and we've got dark energies that are being triggered to accelerate this process all around us, if you can be truthful and try and focus on the authentic expression of you and get to know yourself one bit at a time, it's really going to help you much better in this instance to remain calm, not be filled with so much over anxiety and all of that, and help the chi process the thoughts and the nutrients in your body to useful energy. So I definitely think, praying is as far as sacred medicine goes, is completely underrated, and I think we should include it in every episode. Sacred medicine. That's how critical it is.
Yeah, and I say in praying, the difference between praying and meditation is praying is the active use of your voice to speak to God, like you're talking to God, to speak from the heart. Don't try to like pray by saying words that you're told to say so that you're repeating. No, like you're not praying when you're just repeating words. Actually, praying is when you're actually having a deep conversation to God about what's in your heart. And versus the meditation is more the act
Well,
of
or just
listening to.
the meditation for me, yes, maybe it's not praying, but I definitely see it as you spending time with God. You're showing up,
Right,
and this is
right,
all you need
right.
to do. You just need to show up.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, and so just to show that like the different ways that we do speak to God is through, again, praying is the conversation of talking, and then meditating is the act of listening to God. And in meditation, you don't have to just sit there and be quiet in a room and do nothing. You actually, I do a lot of my meditation in my chores, where I'm being very mindful of what I'm going through, what I'm doing, because in that mindfulness, things will show up and pop up in your reality that shows you that God is also speaking to you through these scenarios and sequences and events around you. And so that's how like meditation could be a thing that we do all the time when we're just walking, and we can have prayers with God when we are walking and things are difficult and we go, "Hey God, blah 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 blah," right? So again, I want everyone to feel like praying and meditation is a very simple thing to do when we're connecting to God. It does not need to be like go to the temple, to the church, on Sundays with a rosary and like purify yourself with like a baptism. No, like if you fail down and you're hurting, talk to God. If you are doing your chores, if you're like just studying, talk to God. I think in that conversation of always listening to yourself, your divine self, you're being guided to follow that divine mission compared to like the ego perspective of this of your spiritual mission.
For sure.
Awesome. So let us now go into the temple doors for our final closing remarks. So today, y'all, I think we got the throat chakra. Let us feel the throat chakra. Take a deep breath while you're listening to this bowl. Feel the chakra in your throat open up and activate to let the yin and yang find connection, to be able to work together in complementary style.
So, I saw a thing on YouTube the other day. There was this guy called Chaz Palminteri or whatever. I don't know if I'm butchering his name, but I absolutely loved what he said. And he said, the great thing about life is that no matter where you are, it always depends on your next move. It's your next move that counts, no matter where you are. So,
Yes.
y'all, no matter what's happened until now, and no matter what's going to happen when Mars opposes Saturn, the fact of the matter is, it's your next move that counts, because right after that, Jupiter and Venus and Sirius is conjuncting, and the magic is about to happen.
Yes. It's some serious business, yo.
But what I want to say is one last word in terms of, our diagnosis today. When fire becomes uncontrolled, it will rise wildly, uncontained and unregulated. But when the earth is strong, it provides the vessel through which fire can shine its light without burning down the temple. And this is the yin and yang of your soul, Mother Chuckers. Not good or bad, but just finding her balance again.
Beautiful. So thank you for the last message. Hope all of you have a wonderful week. wonderful couple of weeks. Until our next episode, thank you, everyone. Until next time, namaste, everyone.
Namaste.